every single person has an idea as to what's wrong with the company and how things could be done better and what they should be doing.
Hi, I'm Trish Tagley, and this is Optimal Instinct, the podcast. I'm a business consultant that works with organizations that sell services. Organizations that want clients to stay longer, be more open to upsell, and refer often. How am I different? Unlike other consultants, I get you to your action plan in a day. What's your time worth? Today, we are speaking to John-Marc Seimon, a partner at a boutique brand and design strategy shop called A Faster Horse. This organization is rooted firmly in the dual traditions of design thinking and the agile approach. Something you might not know about Jon-Marc is that he is from Durban, South Africa, which prides itself on being the last bastion of the British Empire, where the posh ladies used to wear white gloves while waiting for the bus. Welcome, Jon-Marc. Woohoo! Nice seeing you.
Whoa. No, I don't do it. Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. I am totally interested in A Faster Horse, let me ask you first, how did you come to that name?
You know, I will be perfectly honest with you. We started the company, we're a young company, we're just over a year old. And, so the few of us were sitting in my home office, which is a beautiful place, looks out at the actually horses over the road, and we reached that first inflection point, which was, we need a name. Oh my God,
Yes.
we can agonize over this for months.
Yeah.
And one of my partners, Mary Pratt, said, I have this old LLC that we're not using. It's called The Faster Horse. And we all looked at each other and went, fine.
That's it.
Great. That's it. With the idea that, at some point we'd probably change the name. But people have been really, really receptive to it. People like the name, and we like the name. And, so my home office, we call it Stable. And we have all kinds of wretched horse jokes. And we're a faster horse. What can I say?
Yeah, there you go. That's pretty cool. I like the name. I love horses. I still have my saddle, which needs to get used at one point, but maybe when I can get back to riding after this wonderful situation that we're in. Okay. So let's get to the questions.
Okay.
What is the problem that your company solves?
Biggest thing that we try to address is we try to help companies that are facing disruption. And guess what? Right now, that means basically
Everybody.
Our roots and our hearts are in looking at things like climate change and looking at things like social justice. But trying to help companies where those things aren't their central mission. I mean, they're not about doing those things, but rather how they can accommodate themselves to the sorts of imperatives that are starting to introduce themselves. Now, obviously, recently, there have been a few other things which have been disrupting companies.
Yes.
So this becomes a much more unsettled and really, really difficult, challenging, stressful time for everyone. So that's really where we're positioning ourselves and trying to make some kind of a difference.
That's great. That's great. So when you're helping other organizations solve this problem, what are the mistakes that you think they're making or not aware of within the organization?
I think a change happens incrementally. And when people or organizations go through a period of change, they reach a new kind of equilibrium. They feel like, just done this thing, just made this big. We've implemented a whole new way of thinking about something or doing something, and then that settles. And after a while, it gets kind of stale. But it takes a big effort to make a quantum leap
Yes.
again. So this is something that happens incrementally. You know, what we try to do is go in and help people recognize when there is sort of ossified thinking, or if there's siloed thinking, trying to help sort of flush that out a little bit and make it manifest that there are other ways of thinking about things, and trying to really unleash the expertise and intelligence within an organization or a company. A lot of the time, our marquee company, our marquee client is an old insurance company in Hartford, of course. That's where they're all based. 160 years old.
Wow.
And they've been doing their thing really well for 160 years. They focus on industrial equipment breakdown. Okay? It sounds about as exciting as a wet plastic bag. It turns out it was really, really fascinating. They came to us because they were at a real inflection. About 5 years ago, with IoT, the Internet of Things, suddenly, there's a whole new generation of sensors, which is making it much less likely that machines are actually going to break down.
Yes.
We were speaking to an inspector. He gave us a great example of how we used to go and inspect these machines, the industrial machines, and they're balanced in nickel on its side, on top of a machine. And if the machine was vibrating enough for the nickel to fall over, they'd say, "Ha! It needs to be serviced. We take it out of service. We've got to take it offline." Well, with IoT, there are now sensors which can measure the harmonic frequencies of every single ball bearing individually within a machine 30,000 times a second. So they're getting a vastly more nuanced picture of what's going on in those machines. Well, what does this mean for an insurance company? It means if machines aren't going to break down quite so much,
yes,
why do people price insurance? So, crisis. Well, not such a crisis. They're a big insurance company. They went and bought a whole bunch of IoT companies. Well, what happened is that started to have an impact on them, their culture. They started to ask the question, well, what do we do? Who are we?
Yes.
Are we still the same 160-year-old insurance company? Are we a technology company?
Yes.
That's when we came in, and so we got an RFP, we responded, bang, that's when we formed the company. And, which was completely awesome. And it was really, really fascinating. The first thing we did was we identified stakeholders, but we also identified a bigger community of people within whom the knowledge and the intellectual capital of this company, those craniums that existed. And by doing extensive interviews we did about 20, 25 interviews, as happens when you're in a consultant position, you get to interview people from across the company, which is great because you get a much bigger picture and much more nuanced sense of where the passions, the proclivities, the expertises, idiosyncratic little things that someone's doing that no one else knows about. So we were able to get a pretty excellent picture, big picture. And one of the things that we came to was a realization that for 160 years, the kind of emphasis on engineering and on safety and on efficiency, all of these things played into a really strong kind of climate change message, and it's not a greenwashing kind of thing. It's absolutely genuine. And so looking across the insurance industry, we realized that, the insurance industry is falling over itself right now to tell the climate change story, right? But they're all about making you whole when there's the disaster. Okay, so we'll sell you a policy so that if there's the big flood or the tsunami, well, that's not a climate change thing, but, or a fire, et cetera, don't worry, you're going to be okay. They're in the assurance business.
Yes.
Reassuring people. These guys are in a different position in the sense that they can actually promote behaviors and implement technologies and business models which promote really climate positive sorts of behaviors, so they can actually impact that issue in a much more proactive kind of way.
Yes.
And look, I mean, I'm not going to suggest for a second that our little company, is the tail that's wagging this enormous dog. They haven't exactly pivoted and said, oh, okay, this is what it is. But we are making inroads.
Yes.
There are increasingly people, including the CEO, who have participated and listened and gone, there's something there.
Yeah.
We can actually do something. So, it was such an ideal, perfect first client.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
that relationship builds. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what would be, from that experience, what would be a tip for another company that's listening to this podcast right now that you could give that could maybe start the wheels moving a little bit from 160 years of going in one direction to slightly pivoting?
I guess probably the biggest takeaway for us from that, and obviously from our vast other experience, coming before this, we didn't just suddenly, we're not newborn suddenly
Yes.
doing this. But it's something, and I've thought this for a long time, is that, my background personally, my academic background is an anthropologist. Mm-hmm. No one is a bigger expert on their own life and their own life conditions than the person. Listen to people, elicit their knowledge. People love to talk about themselves. They love to tell you what they do. So many of the people that we spoke to at this company said, no one ever asked me. It's like, well, we're asking you. Tell me.
Yeah.
And I mean, the value, the richness that one can unlock from people, and also their ideas. Every single person has an idea as to what's wrong with the company mm-hmm. and how things could be done better and what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. Listen.
Yeah.
So many of the answers are right there.
Optimal Instinct with Trish is brought to you by TrishTagley.com and the book Everyone Knows You Suck, Bad Boss Stories, A Succinct Guide, available now in both ebook and print format on Amazon.com. And the C's Value Model that supports your desire for client relationships that are more profitable, more productive, and more likely to refer. To understand more about the C's model, go to clientvaluedemo.com. Yeah. I mean, if I think about it, a lot of the people that are closer to the ground, okay, so closer to the work, they're the ones who actually see what can be improved faster than those further away, meaning higher,
Because they know what's broken.
Yes.
And they feel the pain.
Yes, exactly. So those are definitely the people that, everybody's input is important for the whole. Okay. Yeah. So that's definitely, that you're a man after my heart. This is always
the thing too is that it isn't just a matter of listening and then regurgitating. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of taking, doing a lot of hard work, synthesizing and pulling out strands, recognizing themes, and introducing possibilities which come from outside. It's not just an echo chamber.
Yes.
You have to be bringing something else mm-hmm. into it, saying, mm-hmm. well, in a different industry, there's some things which you might not have thought of, which are kind of parallel, and which might actually be applicable.
Yes.
And then talk about it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, man after my For people who don't know, this is a little other tidbit, is John-Marc and I used to work at an agency, ages ago, together. So we know each other from there. And that's how we came upon this. And, I was fascinated by what he was doing and I wanted to talk to him. So the last question I have for you is, what should I have asked you that I did not?
Oh, Lord. I knew you were going to ask this question. I'm supposed to have this completely prepared, but...
Whatever. Hey.
I don't know. I was going to say something about, asking about, an experience with a client, but I've already told you that in ample detail. So, gosh, I don't really actually have a good answer for that. What should you have asked me? What would you have wanted to ask that you haven't asked?
I suppose, okay, so let's rephrase it and let me ask it this way.
Okay.
Is this, and I almost think I know the answer, is this the approach that you've taken throughout your career?
I would like very much to say yes. That said, I can't honestly say that it has.
Okay.
I mean, I have tried personally to take this approach, and it doesn't even feel like an approach. It just feels like I'm naturally interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm interested.
Being an anthropologist.
Question. Exactly. It's the anthropologist. That said, the imperatives and vicissitudes of agency life and the demands placed on one, et cetera, and frankly, the expediency which is sometimes required, sometimes mitigate against that. And it's frustrating. And it's one of the reasons that I'm no longer working at an agency. I mean, if there's one thing that I would say we are allergic to, like you, it's bullshit.
Yes.
And, it is so refreshing to not be in a world of bullshit. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what agency stuff is about. Not all of it. But
Not all.
We're very, very lean. There are just three of us.
Yes.
We're extremely agile, and every single thing we do is done on purpose for a... We're not just checking boxes. We're not producing reams of meaningless deliverables that we can say, look, it weighs 50 pounds and you're going to pay us $75,000 for it. No interest in that. And right now, there's not much appetite for that out there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we're both consultants and we're both out. So this is great. Well, then we've come to the end of our podcast, and has been such a great pleasure to see you and hear you again.
Likewise.
And we'll probably do this again somewhere down the road and pick up, and then you might have, what should I have asked you? And you're like, well.
Oh, God. That question's going to come up.
But this has been great. So thank you so much, Jon-Marc, and I will see you again.
Okay, awesome. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us on Optimal Instinct with Trish. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, head on over to iTunes, subscribe, and if you really enjoy the content, leave us a well-appreciated review. If you are looking to create an environment that partners your desire for more profitable, more productive, and greater referability in client relationships, combined with sustained team morale, then I suggest you head over to clientvaluedemo.com to learn more about the C's value model. Talk soon.